been pretty hot. It's been pretty hot. It's been pretty sweltering. And here's what happens when it gets hot. All the energy usage goes up. So what happens is we're washing more clothes. We're sweating more. I mean, you know what? You just do normal something, and you go like, okay, this is my third pair today, of whatever you got on. So, yes. Wash those things, So, I'm just going, it's just constant washing. The ACs are working overtime. The water usage is up. The pumping stations have to pump more water. It's just a whole lot more of everything when it's really, really hot or really, really cold. But years ago, I can remember when that was kind of an amenity. It was a luxury, and we had. I remember the first time we got AC. We had 240. It was 240 AC. You on your side and me on my side. We rolled our windows down, and then we went 40 miles an hour. So it's the best we could do. It's all we could come up with. So, but if we go back, maybe 100 years, it was just literally it was advertised. We have air conditioning. People would go to a movie theater just to get air conditioning. They would go to a bowling alley just to get air conditioning because normal homes didn't have AC. And so here's what I want to say is that be careful with the comfort mentality because that's how John Dillinger bought the farm. And some of you are going, I don't know, I'm not from here. And some of you know exactly who I'm talking about. Google it. But basically, John Dillinger went to a movie theater because it was hot. And he was a criminal and he got shot and killed on the way out. So watch out trying to escape the fire. I just want to say that to set up the sermon. We need to watch out trying to escape the fire because it may just cost us more than just our lives. So, usually, I got to say this, usually on July, right around July, 1st of July, the last of June, I'm just all about the patriotic sermon. So I just want to give you a little bit of it just to hit us out of the gate. Because we have 4th of July that's happening on Friday, and we have Freedom Celebration that's happening on Saturday, and it just, it's our Freedom Week. Nobody celebrates this except for us. We're the only ones that celebrate Independence Day for us, that is. But John Adams, I want to give you basically a little excerpt from John Adams' letter to his wife, Abigail, when he was writing to her, telling her about the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Now, I think it's been so long ago that we just kind of make that ordinary history. It's not ordinary history. You don't stand against the most powerful nation in the world and have less than a 4% chance of winning a battle against the most powerful nation on the planet with basically just a few sharpshooters and farmers, with pitchforks. I mean, it's just not feasible. It can't happen. But yet we're going to establish ourselves as a nation. This was important. He says, I am apt to believe that this will be celebrated by succeeding generations as the great anniversary festival. It ought to be commemorated as the day of deliverance by solemn acts of devotion to God Almighty. Now, you notice he put that the very first thing. Then we ought to solemnize with pomp and with parade and with shows and games and sports and guns and bells and bonfires and illuminations, fireworks from one end of this continent to the other from this time forward forevermore. He said this should be the greatest period in history. And I believe we're living in some of the greatest times in history, but I believe this is one of the greatest events we can go back to and say, look what the Lord did. I don't know if you realize this, but we had a great general named George Washington, and they plucked bullets from his coat over and over and over. Several horses shot out from under him. If he'd have been lost, we'd have lost that war. Never even got grazed by a bullet. And that's how the hand of the Lord was upon us, to make sure that we have a sovereign country. I'm in a country right now that worships the sovereign God. We should celebrate someone's freedom. We should always celebrate freedom. Always celebrate freedom. If somebody says, so-and-so was delivered from drugs, we should celebrate that freedom. So-and-so, their marriage was restored, and they have such a freedom in their marriage, we should celebrate that freedom. We should always remember that's something we should always celebrate this. And somebody may say, well, all of a sudden in the past few years we've implemented a new national holiday on June 19th. Should we celebrate that? If it celebrates somebody's freedom, yes, absolutely we should celebrate it. You know what? I think we should celebrate everybody's freedom. Because you know what? We had a time when people in this country, when people weren't free, we should celebrate the freedom. So, you know, why? Why do I think this way? Well, I'm going to tell you why I think this way. Luke chapter 15, verse 10. There's joy before the angels in heaven of God over one sinner who repents. Amen. I mean, they're living it up. They're living it up. When somebody comes to know the Lord, they are partying. I mean, it's party on, Garth, from there. They are loving every second of it. And you know what? What we could do is we could say, well, you know what? I just don't know if I want to celebrate somebody else's salvation. Well, the angels are celebrating somebody else's salvation constantly. So if the angels could stop what they're doing, make sure they celebrate some freedom, we should celebrate freedom. So this week we're not celebrating just freedom as a nation. Freedom from tyranny, that's the words that were given years ago. We're celebrating spiritual freedom. We're celebrating spiritual freedom because here's the thing. We are very, very interconnected with Israel. And I'll give you one example of why. Israel is the only nation in history that was a nation, ceased to be a nation, and then became a nation again. That's the only one ever that's ever been recorded. So the only nation that ever was a nation ceased to be a nation and then became a nation again. So that makes them exactly prophetic as to what God said. God said when they come back together, when Israel comes back as a nation. So what makes us so special and us so connected to them? Because we're the only nation in history that was established for the sole purpose of spreading the gospel of Christ. So who's the gospel we're spreading? The King of Kings, the Lord of Lords, the guy who hung on a cross for you and me. His name's Jesus. That's who we're celebrating. So here's a $64,000 question. I don't know if it's worth that much or not, but how far off mark are we from where we began as a nation? So we're supposed to be a nation, began with the sole purpose of spreading the gospel of Christ. How far off are we from that? I'm just asking that question. So I'm going to ask some more $64,000 questions, and we could divide those down and make those about $18,000 a piece. But let's just ask another one. Are we as Christ-focused as we should be today, 2025? Are we as Christ-focused as what we should be? I'm just asking the question. Number two is our country as Christ-focused as it should be? I'm just asking the question. Here's the third one. Does what we think align with what God thinks in 2025? Do we think the way that God thinks? Do we slow the roll and say, well, wait a minute, I want to know what you think? Because I'll never forget when I got this death sentence from a surgery that just could not be done with my good friend, and he may live another week or two. And I was just by myself, just went into a little depressed state. And then I walked in, and when I started to tell my wife, Tina, that's my wife, Keisha. I always say my wife, Tina, like you don't know. But when I walked in, I started to tell her, the Lord all up and down me says, but you never stopped asking me what I thought. And this has been 2 years ago or more. And I'm like, okay, well, I'm sorry, Lord. What do you think? He says, you just need to trust what I'm doing. And he didn't die. He's still alive. So here's the thing, is I want to know what you think, God. Because you know what? I'm not a good fortress for me to run into. I'm not a good foundation for me to build upon. I need you to be that foundation, you to be that fortress. So here's the problem. With these questions, with all this mentality, here's the problem. Everyone has an Eliab. Everyone has an Eliab. That's an expectation of how things should be. We all have this idea of how things should be. So in other words, have we ever stopped to ask God, but what do you think it should look like? What's your thought? What thoughts should I have? My thoughts should be basically attached to your thoughts because mine can't be as high as yours. And I can't lean into my own understanding. So you know what? I need to know what you think. And sometimes this is what God does. He doesn't give us the answer quick enough, so we figure we'll just do it ourselves. 1 Samuel chapter 16, verse 6. I'm going to I'm not going to be too hard on Samuel here. I don't want you to be, throwing me out and carrying me out and tar and feather me. You can far and tar me. So take me out and tar and feather me. But 1 Samuel chapter 16, 6. When they came, he, being Samuel, looked on Eliab, and he thought, surely the Lord's anointed is before him. See, we've got maybe too much Eliab going on in our world today. Samuel was called by God to anoint a new king. So I want to make sure we're not left in the lurch anywhere. So the old king, Saul, good dude. Good looking dude, not the character and the personality of David, but he's been king for a long while, and they love him, and Samuel loves him, but he's been rejected by God because he was disobedient. So now God has told Samuel, you go to Jesse's house. So now he's at Jesse's house, and he's going to anoint one of the sons of Jesse to be the next king. It's obscure, little place called Bethlehem, out of the way. Nobody knows where it is. Nobody knows anything about it. We wouldn't know anything if this hadn't never happened. If it hadn't been for David and Jesus, we would never even give it a thought. But Samuel let his opinion deceive his obedience. Now, this is the very man that said, the prophet that said to Saul, obedience is better than sacrifice. But this is the very same person that is allowing his opinion. I'm going to put in what I think you're saying, Lord. I'm going to fill in the blanks. And he's allowing his